Alright, so we got the 414 spoilers, and the final battle between Izuku and Shigaraki is continuing, of course. And coming off of the previous chapter, we saw that a fragment of the vestige, or whatever's going on with Star and Stripe, was able to point out that there is a fracture within Shigaraki, like in the vestige world, in his mind. That's another ambiguous thing, but it contains like the original Tenko fragment of his personality. It's like still in there. We saw it being held back. And the second user of One For All, Kudo, points out that they can attack it from within, like the vestiges themselves. And in order to do that, Izuku is going to have to transfer One For All itself forcibly to Shigaraki, because as Kudo says, the transfer of One For All will smash at that scar, and they'll pry it open and give his soul a direct beating. So that is the plan right now. Forcibly give Shigaraki One For All. The chapter begins with Banjo impressed by Deku using Black Whip to move his own body, and N, the sixth user, shocked that he put the idea into practice so quickly. Kudo then says that Deku doesn't just obey orders, he uses all of the knowledge he has about his quirks to make One For All shine. So yeah, at the end of the previous chapter, we saw Izuku doing just what they're saying here, using Black Whip to move his own body, kind of like puppeting it. Wrapping it around his limbs, wrapping it intermuscularly, like in his muscles from the inside, and then having like tendrils coming out of him. He looked really cool because his body's so beat up from fighting, but also mainly using the second user's quirk, Gear Shift. But first, let's talk about the sponsor of this video, World of Tanks. You can join this free-to-play online PC game accessible to anyone. Whether you're a novice or a pro, you can jump in, experience the same thrill as 100 million players, and interact with a global community of gamers who share your passion. If you're a new player, you can use invite code COMBAT to get a free 7 days of premium access, 250,000 credits, the premium tank Cromwell B, and 3 rental tanks for 10 battles each. That's Tiger 131, T78, and Type 64. You also have access to a huge tank arsenal with over 800 tanks, meaning that there's always a new way to play. There's massive battles with over 40 battle arenas. It's also historically accurate. So guys, I'll have the link in the description, and if you're a returning player, like if you have an account but you haven't played World of Tanks in more than 30 days, you'll get 3 days of premium access, 2D style bargain camouflage, a 7-day rental of premium Tank Centurion Mk 51 RAAC, or 100,000 credit compensation if you already have this tank in your garage. And remember guys, if you're new, you can use code COMBAT to get 7 days of premium access. Thanks guys. So he's kind of forced to do this right now in order to just straight up move. Deku doesn't know if he'll be able to keep up with Shigaraki's speed without Gear Shift, but he has to trust the plan. After all, One For All can only be transferred if Deku consents. He decides that he'll do it by dropping his blood into Shigaraki's wound. So this makes sense because, you know, One For All has to be transferred via DNA, and you can either like eat it, as we saw before when All Might gave Izuku a piece of his hair, but when Izuku's forcibly doing it here, he's just going to put his blood into a wound, an open wound from Shigaraki. I know, gross, but you gotta do what you gotta do. The thing is, Shigaraki heals very quickly, and he'll have to attack and then do the transferring in a matter of seconds. He's this close to losing consciousness due to Gear Shift's recoil, so he'll only get one chance to do it. Shigaraki's point of view. He got a bad feeling from the last attack of the previous chapter, so he cut his own hand off before Deku got closer. Even though he's in pain and can't breathe, the boy has a plan. If he were normal, he'd be focusing on surviving. If he were normal. Shigaraki starts scratching his neck. It doesn't matter, I'll just keep destroying you, this country, everything. And the next page has a very cool panel without any text, just the two of them flying towards each other. Deku uses smokescreen and N is confused since he knows that he's the useless one. Tomura touches the ground, but he realizes that Deku used black chains to tear a huge chunk of the ground out and prevent decay from spreading. Tomura remembers the flying UA security system. So yeah, this is like a great strategy to stop Shigaraki from spreading decay, because like if he just just has the unimpeded ground, he could just keep spreading it across. But if you pull a chunk out of it, he's only going to be able to decay that chunk. And him referring to the UA security system, like when this whole final battle started, we saw that like the tiles in the ground where they were fighting him inside of UA were like popping up when he started to touch them, so that they would only decay and that it wouldn't spread. Danger Sense warns Tomura that One for All is coming from behind, and he turns around, but it was just Gran Torino's cape, which gets decayed, and notices that it's a strategy he used against Nagant, and Tomura sees a drop of blood on the black whip that was holding the cape. Alright, so rest in peace, Gran Torino's yellow cape. It had a good run, but it's gone now, which is pretty interesting, because when we saw like that glimpse of the future from Endeavor, where he saw like the main Class 1A students, Izuku still had Gran Torino's cape, and it was like repaired, or it had like an additional longer thing stitched onto it. So I don't know, maybe that was just kind of like a rough estimate of what the future could be, not like a direct peer into it, because we also saw Bakugo with those edge shot tassels in the back of his head, and that was before edge shot did, you know, what he did with Bakugo, like repairing his heart and all that stuff. Tomura realizes that it's a trap, but it's too late. Deku comes from out of the smoke ready to attack, and Tomura said, "I can see you there, ghosts," before. So Deku decided to bet that Search would react to Kudo's DNA in the blood, since it reacts to anyone the user lays eyes on. So yeah, this was Izuku's plan here. Used smoke screen to stifle Shigaraki's vision, but then playing off of Danger Sense, because, you know, he has the fourth user's quirk now because he took it from Izuku a couple chapters back, and he had one of his like tendrils coming behind through the smoke, holding on to Gran Torino's cape, but there was blood on the tendril. And I guess this means that the vestiges are in Izuku's DNA, because they are partly in the quirk factor of One for All, which Izuku has. So he still, to this day, like has their DNA somehow. I don't know. It's, you know, My Hero logic, but because Shigaraki can see the vestiges, and he already witnessed Kudo before, it was just reacting to the blood on the tendril holding up the cape. So it was kind of like a false triggering by Danger Sense, which Izuku's playing off of here. So it's a great strategy, of course. He then used the smoke to hide and get closer to Shigaraki at the right moment, and remembers Deku saying that all of the One for All quirks are amazing, and starts crying. Tomura's body then starts to change into a defensive mode, turning into that finger armor form. So this is giving credence to N, the sixth user, because he said that his quirk was the weakest of all of the previous users of One for All, and it is. But it is good. It's not like a bad quirk. It's just, you know, it's just smoke. You can use it in a utility sense and use it, you know, in the ways that Izuku is here, and it does work, but it's just, you know, it's just smoke. But anyway, Shigaraki reverting to his finger armor form that we saw before when he was initially fighting Izuku, but that was during the time when like All for One was like primarily hijacking his body for the most part. But Deku lands a punch right in Shigaraki's chest, transferring him gear shift. Kudo, the second user, says, "Don't be sad. When we met, I was already a ghost. Now, before I get consumed by Shigaraki, let me do this." And Kudo's vestige hits Shigaraki's inner world like a meteor, causing damage. Alright, so here's the second quirk from One for All that has been transferred to Shigaraki, and it is gear shift from the second user. And the whole plan about this was to not only attack him from the inside, but also give the exhaustion that gear shift has applied to Izuku from using it to Shigaraki. So in theory, it would alleviate it from Izuku, and then Shigaraki would be feeling the side effects of it. And then after that punch, a weird thing happens. In person, you're super gross. This handsy guy's Mr. Staney's friend, right? I want to join too. You're League of Villains. Deku starts seeing flashes of the first time Shigaraki met Toga and Dabi. So this might be a recurring thing, like we're getting flashbacks every time a One for All quirk or vestige is transferred to Shigaraki. Also showing us how far Toga's character has come. Like, I think Horikoshi realized quickly that this type of character that he had Toga as first wasn't really gonna fly, and she got some character development and adjustment rather quickly. The scene changes and they're in the sports festival arena. I want to be a hero too. Deku sees Shoto using his flames for the first time. I came here after being influenced by Stain. The moment Spinner met Shigaraki, Izuku and Tomura's memories are blending together. I don't think we saw when Spinner met Shigaraki, so that's pretty cool. Spinner was just kind of already a member of the group when the League of Villains invaded the training camp. En shouts, "Ninth, you have to keep attacking. The plan is working. The second user has succeeded, but it's still not enough. You have to keep going." Deku then prepares to transfer the next One For All quirk and the chapter ends. No break next week. So yeah, that was a really interesting chapter. I can't wait to review this. And like I said before, it looks like this is just going to be in sequential order here. We're just going to be going through all of the quirks one by one, forcibly being transferred to Shigaraki, and that's how he will ultimately be taken down from the inside out, quite literally. But yeah, let me know what you think about this in the comments, guys. And also, please follow me on TikTok or Instagram, whichever platform you like to use more. I'm trying to get 10,000 followers on either of those. I post TikToks and Reels all the time, so if you could do that, I really appreciate it, guys. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.